Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah. And the last one. Yeah, thank you. No. Okay, time to get started. Are you ready, sir?
Yep, because it's full. Everybody's got one. That's all that matters.
Everybody get handouts? They're all over here. He'll tell you, I won't go into that. I'm just going to introduce him. I have not met this gentleman, but his name is Dan Baird,
Yes,
right?
correct.
He is the owner of Great River Mushrooms, which is a veteran-owned gourmet mushroom and supply company out of Quincy. Dan was the middle of 3 children, right? Was born on July 19th. I didn't write this, by
This was actually a Facebook post, but I actually sent it to you guys.
Okay. He was
from my company page.
well, I got it from your company page.
Yeah.
He was born on July 19th in 1983, a stroke before midnight in Quincy, Illinois, making him a night owl for life. Dan graduated from Quincy High School in 2002 and went into the Illinois Army National Guard Infantry Airborne Unit in Bartonville, Illinois, straight out of high school. Dan's hobbies of mushroom farming sparked even more fascination with life in general and made him look even deeper into a holistic lifestyle, finding many health-related answers in nature itself. It is the very reason he started his business. Dan hopes to educate people on the power of mushrooms and herbal medicine and show people that nature provides everything we need. Dan wants to educate how you can become sustainable by growing mushrooms at home. And some of you have all of you signed up for this next class, how to cook mushrooms? No, I didn't get to sign up for that one either. I think it may have been full. I don't know. But anyway, he's already been introduced for those of you here in the room. And the next time around, they can use a little bit of this too if they want. Or you can tell them it's been read.
One thing I didn't have was, is there any water out there?
I can get you some. How much do you need?
Just a bottle.
Okay.
Glass. I guess I'll need that. We talk here. I guess everybody's here. As she had mentioned, I actually, to be even more specific and more honest, I actually got into mushrooms by having an experience with psychedelic mushrooms. And I am bipolar. I've actually had mental illness most of my life. I was untreatable. Every year that I got older, it just got worse and worse. And I went to the extreme thing to try a new experience. And it's completely altered my life. I find it so intriguing that something that grows in nature can have that profound of an effect on somebody who had untreatable mental illness that was not, 25 years of Western medicine, and I was just getting worse. So that was really what got me really, really intrigued. I got into gourmet mushrooms, and I found the health benefits, and I actually found a big niche there was nobody growing mushrooms within 150 miles of me. So I also kept going in deeper, and I started looking for more herbal medicine that would help treat my bipolar. I found lion's mane, turkey tail, I also take CBD, CBG, which I also sell as well. I don't have any with me today, but I buy that from local farmers from Quincy who are state tested, and then we process it and turn it into capsules. So that's really how my story started and how I actually got more deeper into this type of stuff. And I'm very open with that. I don't hide. I guess I can come in here and lie and tell you, I bought a mushroom kit and I was just so intrigued, but really that was the part that, and maybe some of you have had experiences like that too. And I know as we continue to have other states who, regulate magic mushrooms, I do educate people on it as well. And I have a podcast where I do that as well. So I've had 2 years it's called the Rumination Project, and we talk a lot about psychedelics and science and other things as well. So you can check that out on my website. There's information on that as well. And we're actually live on one of my podcasts right now on my Great River Mushrooms page. So we do a lot of lives because we do educate people about mushrooms as well. So to our audience out there, it looks like we got 5 people watching us. Thank you guys for watching us. And so we'll get started here. This is the gourmet mushrooms, how to grow mushrooms at home. And we're really going to talk more about the oyster mushrooms. They're the easiest one to grow. We actually have, this is an oyster species right here. This is the pink oyster. So the oyster species is one of the most common mushrooms on Earth. It actually is on all 6 continents, 6 out of 7 continents. It actually grows in the tropics, and that's why this specific mushroom is pink. So even the mycelium is actually pink as well, which is even interesting. And we'll talk more about what mycelium is in this video here, or this PowerPoint presentation. And the oyster species are really easy to grow because they're super aggressive. There's a reason they grow on 6 out of 7 continents, because they'll grow anywhere. And they're resilient, and they fight off contaminations. And if you get into more other mushrooms like lion's mane, there's a mushroom scale from 1 to 10. And we kind of rate each mushroom how difficult it is to grow at home. And the oyster species is like a 1 or 2. The lion's mane is more like a 3 or 4 or 5, depending on what region of the country you live in, because drier regions may have bigger issues with growing them. But yeah, there are a lot of different kinds of mushrooms to grow at home, but some of them are more difficult because they don't have. It really comes down to the strength of this immune system. That's why the oyster species really is the one we'll be talking a lot about today. And I don't even know how many oyster species that there are. There's dozens, if not hundreds. And I only grow about 6 of them. So why grow mushrooms at home? Really, it's all about self-reliance. Really, in fact, the NASA is actually growing mushrooms in space because it's so self-reliant. It requires so little water, and that's why it really does. I think it's one of the least amount. You get the most produce with the least amount of water. So I think it's not really that much water to get. Like these bags here grow about 3 pounds of mushrooms. That little bag there. It'll do it over about 3 or 4 flushes. So it'll actually grow for about 5 or 6 weeks. Pick it, and then 5 days later, more start growing. So. Plus, that makes it fun and educational. Like I have so many kids that find that intriguing. I give family, like for Christmas, who have kids, mushroom kits, because then they can actually grow them at home, and then the kids can have the fun factor and educational value. It's also eating wholesome, homegrown food. You really can't beat that. Plus, everybody knows that vegetables are getting expensive. Well, veggies and fungi, as we call them. I actually trade a lot of mushrooms for veggies, so I don't have to grow the vegetables. The aspect of saving money, of course, mushrooms are. They're actually the mushrooms that I sell are very similar in price to portobellos at the store. They just sell them in 4 ounces. I sell them by the pound. So it's more about $12 a pound. I sell them at a farmer's market, or $7 for half a pound.
What does the lion's mane sell?
A little more. That's a really gourmet mushroom, so that's more about 10 to 11 for a half a pound. And then we also have shiitake, which I grow a lot of, which I actually have some live shiitake in here, so that for the cooking class. I sell a lot of the shiitake as well, and those go for about 12 for a half pound. And that one I sell out. If I go to a farmer's market, you can have 30 pounds of it. You'll sell it halfway through the market. Everybody just loves shiitakes. Homegrown mushrooms have superior flavor. You really can't get much fresher than picking it out of the bag and then putting it in a pan, 5 minutes later. There's not much really that you can get much fresher than that and get that really good flavor. Expand your sense of taste. Obviously, like I said, there are dozens, if not hundreds of different oyster species, and every single one of them tastes different. Then you have all the other gourmets like the chestnuts, the shiitakes, the lion's mane. I can't even think of all the other names, but there's so many different mushrooms. And develop a greater appreciation for nature. These are all really good reasons to really just grow mushrooms at home. And these are one of the really good reasons is the vitamin. Now, just like humans, mushrooms can actually take light and turn it into vitamin D, and that's why it's even more interesting. And we share so many similar genetics with mushrooms. Is they turn that vitamin D, and then you can actually consume it, that vitamin D, when you eat it. Now, they actually when the mushrooms will grow in the dark, that they actually grow in the dark, they do contain a lot less vitamin D. So the sunlight doesn't help them grow, but it does add that added vitamin.
So is that a vitamin D that most people can absorb if they eat it?
Yeah. And that it's really, I don't think I have it on this one, but I think it's on the next. Yeah. Sunshine vitamin. Fat-free, low-calorie, nutrient-dense, low in sodium, especially if you don't add salt. And it's the produce's only natural source of vitamin D, which can be increased by exposing mushrooms to a controlled amount of ultraviolet light. So I actually have lights in my which there's pictures of my grow facility in here. But I've grown them without lights, and they grow almost the same way. But they do grow. They grow in different directions. They like to have a light for it to have a sense of direction as well to grow. So they have a lot of B vitamins and immune function. That each mushroom kind of contains its own different minerals as well, but they really contain most of these right here.
Is not maybe going right along with what you're talking about, but so like Native Americans and generations before us, were they using mushrooms? Do you have any history on that?
Yeah.
Has a lot of it been passed down?
Yeah. So a lot of them were actually using psychedelic mushrooms.
Well, yeah.
Okay. They've even found some of those on 10,000-year-old caveman who was apparently carrying it around.
Okay.
And they a lot of that for spiritual, but then they did also consume mushrooms for nutritional value. So, but somebody had to walk through the woods and figure out which ones were poisonous and which ones weren't. And I'm sure every week there was somebody who's like, "Oh, Charlie ate the wrong mushroom." And didn't make it.
My major question: how did they determine which?
Yeah. Some trial and error. That's how it had to be. But there are toxic mushrooms that a lot of times you can remove the toxin doing a certain cooking it and preparing it. I do know that. I still wouldn't even attempt it.
Maybe they fed it to their dogs first.
Yeah, they could have.
Find out.
But yeah, but a lot of times our stomachs are a little more complex than even a dog's. But that's probably what they did. They probably fed it to an animal first, and didn't kill them, then they would eat it. But a lot of animals besides deer, because I have a pile of mushrooms in my yard that I kind of dispose of the bad ones. There's no animals that are interested in them besides deer, really.
And the deer eat them.
Yeah, the deer eat them. All right, now this is the crash course kind of on the myths of my mushrooms. And we only really took, a week in school about learning about mycelium. So this is really the fascinating part as well. What is mycelium? See it? Mycelium is a root-like structure of fungus consisting of a mass of branching-like hyphae, which is what you see in this one. Sometimes it's really, really aggressive. Sometimes it's really a lot lighter. And this one has all those filaments through there. You can see the light white haze all over the bag. So, the lion's mane doesn't really have a lot of mycelium that you can see. It's a lot more finer network, and each kind of mushroom really has its own kind of different mycelium. It is the living vegetative part of the fungus consisting of a network of delicate interwoven white filaments, sometimes pink, that are just one cell wall thick. The mycelium contains highly active cells that serve many important functions, including acting as the immune response for the fungal organism. And I don't see any in here, but sometimes the bag will, well, there's a little spot right there. That's the beginning of a little enzyme, and that is the mushroom immune system. So it doesn't mean there's a contamination in there, but you'll see little yellow spots. Sometimes it's a yellow liquid, and that is its immune response. It's building up enzymes. It's basically the mushroom's antibiotics. And once it reaches full colonization, it has the ability to fight off other fungi, other contaminations. Mostly trichodermia is the most that I deal with, which is that blue stuff you see on your bread. That's trichodermia. It's the most. It's everywhere. It's inside of our houses, and we'll talk about today how to avoid keeping it from getting into your mushrooms. So, because it destroys a lot of stuff, and I've even in my garden, even for experienced people, we still deal with contaminations of trichodermia because it's just everywhere. And mycelium is like the mother plant of the perennial one, in which the mother continues to live for many years while the flower, or in this case, the mushroom, blooms essentially and then dies. So the main part of the organism really lives under the ground. A lot of times, let me shut the door.
Sorry, I should have done that. Are you all able to see okay? Do you need the lights dimmed? You're okay?
Let's say.
Mother plant. Mother plant.
Yeah. So yeah, basically the majority of the plant lives underground, and really doesn't pop up unless it wants to. The conditions have to be perfect, and that's why a lot of times you can't find morels in one spot you found one year because maybe the humidity is 5% off when the temperature is just right and it didn't want to grow. It really is that sensitive to humidity and temperature that many years it doesn't grow if it doesn't want to. So most of it lives underground, and it can live there for, I think the oldest mycelium network is a couple thousand years old.
Doesn't
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
the morel live cohesively with a host plant, a tree?
Yeah, that's actually the next slide. Oh, that's on the next slide.
I'm sorry.
For the morel, my mycelium is that can come out. So,
Yeah, usually it comes down to the base, and they call it.
you should put it back in there.
It doesn't really matter. I don't think. I know a lot of people probably say it does, but whether or not you pick it or not, it re-eats the mushroom. So if a mushroom grows in one area, like out of that bag, the mycelium will re-eat itself. So it is a carnivore. The mushroom dies, the mycelium will grow all over it and then eat it. In that case, it's called we call it, no, we call it, there's an actual term when the mycelium actually starts to grow up on the base of a mushroom, a fuzzy foot or something like that. I can't remember, but sometimes you may see the mycelium start to grow up the base, and that's usually the first sign that it's starting to eat itself.
So is there danger of, when you pick a morel, of taking part of that mycelium, or?
No, there's millions of cells, single cells. You can even shake the dirt up, and the first thing to do is they find another cell. Then they connect back to that cell, and then they start to form their network again. So you can't even really kill them if you shake the ground up.
I have to share this story about mushrooms. 1 year, and this has been about 40 years ago, we found probably 40, 50 pounds of mushroom in one area, morels.
Yeah.
I mean, it was grass, and they'd be full. It was just an amazing thing. We left and came back and picked the next day. But they've never been there since.
Yeah, I've experienced the same thing, 25, 30 pounds on an acre and never again.
So can you actually propagate it, or do you just have to?
You can. It's very difficult. It's actually 1 to 10 scale. The morale is probably an 11. And I've seen some of the facilities that people who have, or the people who do grow, may have like 50 years of mushroom experience. They have knowledge that is beyond that I have, and that's really what it takes to grow mushrooms is experience. Because even every new species that I grow, I kind of have to learn how to grow it. They're slightly different than the other ones. And this is the about what mycelium does really underground. The activities of mycelium help heal and steer ecosystems on their evolutionary path, acting as a recycling mechanism to nourish other members of the ecological communities. By cycling nutrients through the food chain, mycelium networks benefit the soil and allowing surrounding networks of plants and animals to survive and thrive. This is also increasingly known as the wood wide web. Mycelium can be found underfoot with nearly every footstep on a lawn, field, or forest. It has been concluded that much of 90% of land plants are mutually beneficial relationship with mycelium networks. So without fungi, all networks, everything fail. And this is also one of the things that I talk about with farming and why farming is destroying a lot of the stuff that we put in the ground is killing the mycelium. And you think about whether the corn, you have all these plants that grow, they have no way to connect to the plant next to them without any mycelium. So that's why it's really an important factor of gardening. And I even sell some of the my used mushroom bags, and you can dump them in your garden, and the mycelium will continue to live in there as well. And sometimes you get mushrooms that pop up, but
How would the farmer not do that?
really it's the anhydrous ammonia, not tilling. There's a lot of things, but I mean, we've gone to the way we have to farm to save money because but I mean, eventually we'll have to change.
But
Or we'll
can
keep
they put more
destroying.
back on the ground? Can they put it back on?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, but it would be a more expensive way to grow. But it's really the only way to grow truly organically and with nature, like we do at our gardens at home. I mean, we would never add anhydrous ammonia to our gardens. But they do, and then they grow. They grow our food in it. Did you know that trees living near one another transfer water and nutrients to one another through mycelium networks? So the older, more established tree in the networks are called the hub trees or the mother trees, and their roots go deeper into the soil, which means they have access to even more resources to pass to other trees. So trees do talk to each other by sending chemical signals through mycelium networks, and they can send and detect distress signals and send resources to trees in need during drought, bug invasions, and times of distress. And that is why even farming is more important, because if you had a mycelium network in a field and one part of the field was affected, the plants would send their nutrients to save those other plants. And in exchange for that, the mycelium gets carbon. So the carbon is exchanged. So the mycelium will send the nutrients, and then the plants give carbon. Carbon actually goes into the soil, feeds all the little bugs and nematodes and everything. And that's really what makes a really healthy soil. So they have a symbiotic relationship with the fungi, which retain some carbon, as I said, and sugars for their own growth in exchange for passing nutrients for the trees. And these networks are a key part of the forest ecosystem and help our forests thrive. And they're actually discovering now that maybe the trees and everything underground is actually holding more carbon than we thought. And it could be anywhere from 40 to 60% of the carbon that is on this planet is actually being stored in trees. And I know there's a lot more to figure out. Maybe the trees are changing and we cause them to have more carbon, or maybe they've always been that way. But it's all really interesting, all this stuff that happens underground and how much it plays a part in our ability to be alive. Because without this, we wouldn't be able to live. And now we're going to talk about the above ground part, the actual mushroom. And the mushroom is the reproductive structure produced by some fungi. It is somewhat like the fruit of a plant, except that the seeds it produces are in fact millions of microscopic spores that form in the gills or pores underneath the mushroom's cap. And that's why a lot of these mushrooms are really pretty looking, like pink oyster, or you'll have like other species that really stick out in the woods because they actually want something to eat it. And actually the spores will actually pass through the digestive system of animals and then spread out through nature as well. So those spores are the seeds, and that's why a lot of times they actually are interesting colors and stuff like that. Or they can blow away too, or be spread by other means such as animal feeding. And if they land on a suitable substrate such as wood or soil, spores will germinate to form a network of microscopic rooting threads which penetrate into their new food source. And here is the basic structure of a whole mushroom. You really have, a lot of times when you pick the mushroom, the morale, yeah, you'll actually see some of those hairs on the bottom sometimes. And that's its connection to the ground. That is the height. And it connects actually to everything else. And we have the vulva, which is remnant of a membrane that completely covered the immature mushroom and ruptured as the stem grew. Most of the time, this part's underground. So usually when you pick them around, you're picking right here. Sometimes you pick the whole mushroom, you'll see you pick the hyphae and everything. And of course, you got the cap and then underneath the gill and the ring and everything else. So this is what most of them are. I know there are some mushrooms that actually don't have a gill. The blow, one where the puffball, that's it. Yeah, and we see some of those around here too. But I think those are really the only ones that don't have gills. And this is the life cycle of a mushroom. Spore to mycelium, mushroom starts to grow, spores release, mycelium restart. It's really a simple network or life cycle, and it basically can live forever. But if an asteroid hit this Earth, the mycelium would survive, and I think that's already been proven in the past with other instances where the mycelium was just stuck underground for thousands of years while the Earth recovered, and then it came back up. And there's also fossils of 30-foot mushrooms as well. So they're
freezing. They can withstand the freezing.
well, it depends on they'll go deeper underground if it's freezing, because if the deeper you go down, it's actually warm.
Like the permafrost up in Alaska. Are there mushrooms?
No.
No.
Well, unless they're deeper, but I don't think we know anything about deeper mycelium. They usually stay near the surface. They only go as deep as tree roots usually.
What's the soil temperature for most mushrooms before they can actually?
I think it's Moralzo is like 48 degrees.
65 or 48.
That's when they start to. Now a lot of the oyster species that I grow prefer 50s,
Okay.
and actually the colder you get with blue oyster, actually the bluer they get, and the warmer the temperature is, the grayer they'll appear. So the temperature also influences their color, but not as much as their taste. Yeah, some mushrooms are way more specific on
So
temperature.
the temperature in the soil, they start forming at 48 is what you're saying.
Yeah, and that during our springs, that's the temperature, the soil temperature where the mycelium like, hey, I could probably start to grow a mushroom here soon.
So
Yeah, the air temperature is warmer. Yeah. Unlike I grow them indoors, so the bag is the same temperature as
Right.
the outdoors. So unlike nature, it's a little bit different. And this is the sheet that was in the handouts. And this is really the method of all the methods that growing mushrooms. This is really the most important paper, but we're actually going to start here with the liquid mycelium and some of this that I have here. And these are actually agar dishes, and I'll actually pass these around. And this is actually, these are myceliums, and you can actually see see the difference in the different myceliums, because every mycelium does not look the same, and you can tell when you look in the petri dish. And that is the first part of where you start mushrooms propagation, which is right here. Now most of the time you can buy these on the internet. This is where there's companies all over that sell liquid mycelium. Some of these are older. This is actually a hen of the woods. And hen of the woods is actually very difficult to grow indoors. That's why I have not tried it. And we have chicken of the woods too, which is another mushroom that's difficult to grow indoors. But right inside here is your liquid mycelium. You can actually see it all chunked up. The mycelium is just floating, and this is a agar. It's usually just sugar water, and it can usually live in here for a couple of years. One of the downfalls of using this method to grow mushrooms when you first start out and then store it for a while is you don't know if it's contaminated until you put it into the bag and something else may start to grow.
So what does that cost?
These are usually anywhere from $8 to $15 online. And once you have that, you basically have it forever as long as you don't lose the petri dish. And it's in your inventory basically forever.
Is that what you get when you get a kid? A kid gets a Christmas gift for the mushroom. You get that.
No. Usually this mushroom kitchen is like this. This has already been put in the bag for you and then colonized. So this is just the smaller part, and really you have to colonize to grow it up to a lot larger mass. And you can do these as well. And this one actually has a needle. You put the needle right through here and you pump it in there, and that's the best way to do it. And that's when you get more down to here with the spawn jars, inoculating, and So you can skip the Petri dish as well, and that's what all these arrows refer to, because you can skip some methods. Say if you don't want to use these, you can also use these. I can cut these up and put them into my grain jars and allow the mycelium to grow as well. You can also take these and put these on the Petri dishes and do the same thing as well. And the mycelium will start to grow on. You can actually see some of those are actually growing mushrooms in the Petri dish.
So what's the best and easiest way? I would want to do a log, leave it outside. Well,
And
that would be
the shiitake was
the
really
shiitake.
is one of those, and that's when you get more down to here. And you get down to your different kind of methods. Now I use the bag method,
Okay.
and this is the bulk substrate. It looks like dumping in a garden. You can also do it in trays. That's very difficult because you kind of expose it. The bag method is the best because it protects it from contamination, and also keeps it at the perfect amount of humidity, perfect amount of CO2 and oxygen, which is really important to growing mushrooms. It's the exchange of oxygen, because mushrooms actually breathe just like us. They breathe in oxygen and expel CO2. And when there's too much CO2 in the area, they struggle to survive just like we do. This has to be a perfect mix of it, and then it has to be an exchange of air too, so fresh air coming in. So that's why I prefer to do the bag method. The log method is very interesting. You can also do bags that hang down, and that's the straw method. Now the straw is very messy. Most gourmet farmers don't mess around with it because it's a super messy process. You're dealing with hay, but you basically pasteurize straw, stuff it into a bag, and then inoculate it with your mycelium. And you can grow a lot of mushrooms that way, but like I said, it's extremely messy, and just when things are messy in your garden, it risks other things coming in and growing.
So how do you pasteurize straw? Just boil it?
In lime.
Lime?
Yeah, most people do it. They have these huge 50-gallon barrels, and they set it out outside their house, and they'll boil it for like 10 hours. Or they have a steamer hooked up to it, and I've even seen them use steamers from saunas. They'll buy the steamer unit and they'll hook it up through the barrel and have an exhaust on top and steam out for like 10 hours.
So is it controlled what kind of mushrooms you can grow, or can you grow any kind of mushroom?
It's more or less the difficulty of growing that keeps you. The oyster species are the easiest.
But are there illegal mushrooms?
Yeah, they grow differently. Like they grow in the tray method. So the psychedelics grow most this way.
But are they controlled in any way? Is that if they aren't, anybody can grow, is what I'm
Yeah. So you can actually buy a psychedelic mushroom in this form, completely legal. It's for educational purposes. All 50 states, you're allowed to buy them in this form. Then when you stick them into a substrate and then the mushroom starts growing, that's actually when it becomes illegal. But it's not illegal to own the mycelium on a psychedelic mushroom.
But if you get caught with a mushroom,
Yeah.
then you're in trouble.
Yeah, because you can't eat I couldn't eat the mycelium in there and have any effect. Now there is some in there, but it's so minute that it wouldn't have no effect on you. So that's the reason that they're allowed to be sold and bought on the internet, like you see. It's just the process of inoculating with something else when it becomes illegal. So yeah, that's the most. This is the smaller overview as we were talking about. A lot of this actually has to be pressure cooked as well. Everything is sterilized in my pressure cookers. These bags all get 15 psi for about 2.5 hours. It kills any contamination. And, these are actually the ingredients too. This is the hardwood pellets and soil pellets. And these are literally, they're $6 for 50-pound bags of Menards for fuel stubs. So I get a lot of looks when I go in there and I buy it in the middle of summer when it's like 90 degrees. And I'm buying fuel pellets. They're for heat stoves. Heat stoves.
Heating stones.
And it's dirt cheap. It's like they sell it for $6, for 50 pounds. And you can turn it into mushrooms.
That can be substitute for the sawdust.
Yeah. So once you put it with water, it turns into sawdust. And it's so cheap because a lot of the companies, they just make sawdust from whoever has sawdust laying around and they put it in the pellets.
You need to be specific about your sawdust, right? You shouldn't use anything that's arsenic in it or like, sawdust from treated.
Yeah, don't use treated. You want it to be a hardwood species, only hardwood.
So just like for your smoker.
Yeah. Yeah. I think almost all smoker grills are hardwood
Yeah.
species.
Now, when you put that in the pressure cooker, does that have water in it too?
When you put it in the what?
The pressure cooker?
Yeah. So it usually has, I usually put like a quart in there just because you don't want it to dry out. And then actually, another thing is that people are aware of is a pillowcase. So if you use plastic bags and you want to, because I learned this the hard way when I burned 3 bags inside of the pressure cooker, is a pillowcase works excellent. You put the pillowcase in, you put your bags in, and nothing will burn. So even if you're not making mushrooms or using some other plastic, a pillowcase works excellent as to keep the pain from burning your bags. As long as you don't run out of water. So if you run out of water, then pressure cooker work's gonna be.
Yeah.
Dry air.
Yeah,
Right. So those are hardwood pellets, is that what you're saying?
correct.
How do they?
They don't-
Sell them?
Yeah, they usually don't say in the bag if you buy them like that cheap. They combine a whole bunch of hardwood because they're meant for fuel. They're not really meant. Somebody's not cooking with them. They're just using them for heat. Yeah, that's the top portion of that. And here's the bottom portion. And like I said, a lot of different species. We're going down this way and do the bag method. And you could do this as well. The bag culture, we do a little smaller. Yeah, that's a really different kind of things, the different kind of methods of growing. And I think that really covers all of them. This picture that you see the log right here, plugging the log, and you can even buy those online too. The plugs, they're actually pretty cheap. You literally drill a hole, follow the directions, drill a hole, plug it, and usually you'll get shiitakes the next year or 2 later. Now, shiitakes grow extremely slow, even indoors. They actually take 2 months in colonization mode. They literally sit on a shelf for 2 to 3 months before they'll actually grow any mushrooms. So that's why shiitakes cost more. The longer it takes to grow a mushroom, the higher the cost is on the market. So that's where it really comes down to, or the ability for it to not be reproduced like the morale. That's why it is so expensive, because if you can't produce as much of it, obviously, you only get it in the spring, then the price is going to be high.
So does it matter your water that you use? Can it have chlorine in it?
No, you want to make sure you it doesn't have to be clean, but I usually filter my water. So I just use like an RV filter, which cleans out most of your chlorine and the harsher chemicals. So it doesn't have to be extreme, like you don't have to do osmosis, reverse osmosis or anything like that. But
You can use well water.
probably. You really just want to avoid the chlorine. That's not what the mushrooms like. Probably. I mean, really, you have to worry about contamination. So the cleaner it is, the better. But I mean, it does get sterilized. But there are things that do survive the pressure cooker. And then there actually is a form of a black mold that I've actually dealt with, and I've learned a lot about that. Actually, it's not the same black mold that you deal with. It actually is inside of a grain, and it'll actually hide inside of a grain, even survive a pressure cooker, and then pop out a black mold in my bag. And it's been very difficult to deal with. But
you grow this bag and harvest the fruit, can you restart that mycelium for another crop?
yeah,
Okay, so.
well, no. Once it grows 4 or 5 times, which is probably the max it can grow. Yeah, it really doesn't have enough nutritionally. I mean, you could probably transfer it in another bag, but you're risking bringing other things with it, because a lot of times when the block starts to deplete, its immune system's not as strong. So you might see like I see sometimes splotchy trichodermia start to grow up. I leave it inside, might grow too long.
It's okay to put it in the compost pile.
Yeah, that's really what it's better to use in the garden at that point. And this is the whole oats one, and this changed over. I didn't update this, but I use rye berries now. But the whole oats is actually it's a cheaper alternative, and they actually sell them at your farm and home supply. And you can use almost about any grain on the market, but really it's about a grain that can hold a little bit of moisture and not split. That's really a grain you want to use. So, and the cereal rye. Yeah, and rye berries are more expensive, but they're about 3 times as much as whole oats, but they contaminate a lot less. So there's when you deal with commercial level like I do, I have to look at some costs, but I actually was having so many issues with the whole oats, I just went to rye berries instead, and just I'm willing to pay the extra, not lose my mushrooms. So they're very prone to contaminations at the beginning of their life. Therefore, it's necessary to establish a robust mycelium network before adding to the final substrate. So it's really important that this bag, like this jar before it goes into here, is fully colonized, because now it has built an immune system. It's ready to go into here. But once it goes into here, it has a weak immune system because it's in a new environment until it fully colonizes that bag. So
How long does that take?
10 days. Yeah, it'll fill, once you put it in the bag, it'll colonize it. You can, once it's in, make the whole bag, you can have mushrooms in 20 days. It's so fast how fast they grow. I have a video on here too that shows how the fast they grow in 4.5 days. And, like I said, they have provides, this is where grain spawn plays a crucial role, provides a sterile, nutrient-rich environment for the mycelium to flourish. Once the grain has become fully colonized, the mycelium has already developed an immune system. Therefore, it's more resistant to contamination and can be safely added to your bulk substrate, which in this case is the bulk substrate. Well, Master's Mix is a nutritional substrate blend pioneered by T.R. Davis of Earth Angel mushrooms in I think this was in the 90s. It's a blend of hardwood fuel pellets and soy hulls. It colonizes quickly and yields highly, and additionally encourages a larger than average first flush, allowing for a quick turnover. And you can actually grow like 70% of any gourmet mushrooms in this. Now, sometimes you just adjust the mix a little bit, like the shiitake, like 80% hardwood and 20% soy. All the oyster species, like a 50-50 mix. The shiitake doesn't like to have a lot of nutrition. It really likes to have something strong to hold on to. So the hardwood pellets give it the ability to hold on to something, because if it doesn't have that, it will not produce mushrooms. And the soy hull offers the nutrition that the mushroom needs. Soy hulls are actually the outer shell of a soybean. They're actually pretty useless. Like ADM would basically almost give them away for free. I buy 500 pounds for $80, and that is one of the more cheaper places. And I actually go there, and people are like, "This stuff's been sitting here for 8 months. Nobody ever buys it."
How do they get just the hulls?
I think they shell it and then they pelletize it somehow. So these are pellets. So they actually whatever they have left over, I'm sure they ground it down and then make it into a pellet. A lot of times it's used to feed animals, but it doesn't have a lot of nutritional value for an animal, but it has plenty for a mushroom. And again, this is the Master's Mix. It's 1 part soy hull. Again, this is for majority of the oyster species and a majority of your mushrooms besides the shiitake, which requires a little bit of adjustment. But 1 part soy hull, 1 part hardwood, sawdust hydrated into 60%, which is every 5 pound breeding block. It gets 1.4 liters of water and 2.5 cups of soil and 2.5 cups of hardwood pellets. That is what's in here. And once you add this into here, it does equal 5 pounds. But before, when it's empty, like this is actually 4 pounds. Then we add 16 more ounces and we make it a 4 pound bag.
What's in the jar?
That is grain.
Grain.
It's the whole oats grain. So you want to do it in a grain because it allows you to break it up. Once it fully colonizes in here, it has no ability to break up its final home, because it starts to actually suck in and turn into it almost like a brick once it'll actually start to produce mushrooms. So we use the grain because it allows me to do it. I'll actually stick this in here, break the grain up, and then I dump it in. So that is the reason we use grain and not any other thing, because it allows the ability to break it up and then move it into other places. And then we sterilize it for 2.5 hours at 15 psi. And that is also the handout there with more specific directions of how to actually do it. And again, that will grow about 60% of your species. The other 10% are the shiitakes, and all it does is just adjust the recipe just a little bit. But I've even messed up the recipe before, and I've actually given the oyster species the shiitake bags on mistake, and they still grew in there. So the oyster species are just super aggressive, and they'll really just grow on about anything. And here's the liquid mycelium. Like I said, we take the syringe, stick it through. Most of the time, they have a point. And these are the ones I actually make myself. I actually drill the hole. And it's a resealable seal, so when the needle goes through it, you pull out, self-seals. Now you can use those about 4 times before usually I need to, can't use them anymore because the top's just not big enough. Usually you'll do it once and then you can replace these. They come in about 50 packs. You just drill a hole and stick them on. And it has a little micron filter, so that, like I said, that allows for CO2 to escape and fresh oxygen to come in for it, keep other things out as well. They use cotton in this case. I know a lot of people, home growers use cotton. Once you get to a more commercial level, you're more likely buying filters that are meant for commercial levels. But cotton does work really well. Like I said, the hot water works great to wake up the wood pellets. Once you add hot water to either one, that's really helps break it up a lot better. When you have the soil holes mixed up, add substrate in the mushroom bag with filter. And these are the bags that I buy. And these are they have a filter patch actually built in. I have 2 sizes. This is my commercial. I don't actually sell this to the public because they're just too big. But I grow in 10-pound bags inside my garden. And these are the ones that I more or less try to sell in kits like those. But I do grow the 5-pound bags in there as well. But I mostly switch to 10 pounds because it's just a lot easier when you can make bigger bags. The 10 pounds actually grow 6 pounds of mushrooms over about 5 or 6 weeks. So get some really big flushes of mushrooms. Add the pressure cooker and pressure cook at 15 psi.
So you pressure cooker it in the jar or the bag?
You can do either one. So this is more of your bulk substrate, and this is how you get it from, because you really don't want to put it into here, but you risk contamination. The more mycelium that is present, the less chances there are of contamination. So if you put a whole bunch like this in here, it'll have a lot better chance of surviving than just putting a syringe, because it has to be able to fight off something. Maybe something that came in the bag when you made it, which, I mean, it's not sealed yet until I actually put it in there. Now here's the sealer, which I have this right here. And this is when you actually inoculate. Like I was saying, this is when you actually dump into the bag. And this is find the cleanest room in your house. And believe it or not, your bathroom, according to a lot of science, is actually the cleanest reason of your house. Which is surprising, but it's they say to do it in there because it's the smallest and there's less chances of something coming in. The kitchen actually is what a lot of people think is the cleanest. It's not. But I actually have a lab that I actually use, and they have these on the market too. These have actually become a lot more affordable, and they've actually gone from $100 to $35 now in the last few years. And these allow you to do at home. You stick your hands through here. They have a zipper on the side, and you can put your bags in there, put your hands through there, and have a very clean environment. There's a lot less chances of something else getting in there. I wish I would have had this when I first started growing, but they were like $130. And then I re-looked last week, and I'm like, wow, there's like 4 or 5 people producing them now, and it's a lot more affordable now. So find the cleanest. Like I said, sterilize. That's really the number 1 thing. Number 2 thing and number 3 thing. Sterilize, sterilize, sterilize. Because without those, you can't have anything else. And I have a lot of these in my house with 70% alcohol. And it's better to use 70% because it actually sits on the surface longer than, say, 99%. And that until it evaporates. So 99% literally evaporates so fast it doesn't kill anything. So we mix with a little water and let it sit on the surface a little longer before it evaporates, and that helps a lot. So 70% is your preferred alcohol level to kill a lot of things.
What type of alcohol?
Just isopropyl.
Okay.
Yeah, I buy it in actually in a little bit more bulk, 99%, and then I water it down. Yeah.
Well, can you use like Everclear or any of the
Yeah,
liquors?
you can.
Water is.
and I also have some Germex around the house too. So I constantly, if the people who watch my videos, they're like, you're constantly using that spray bottle. I'm like, I mean, you have to. Literally in between touching anything that comes into your lab, you have to keep your hands clean because it takes just one piece of something and it can destroy your whole garden. And I've actually had mass contaminations happen where I lose like 20 items. And they'll spread like wildfire. They'll get through those filter patches somehow. Especially the black mold. Black mold has is very fine, and it can get through small spaces.
White vinegar.
It does, but doesn't kill as many as alcohol. That's why alcohol is the best. It literally kills almost 99.9%.
There's different
Any living
percentages on that alcohol, on that vinegar though. Was it 5%, 7%, or they've been lower?
Yeah,
They've been
but
lower.
there are some contaminations that can survive vinegars. But don't mix vinegar with alcohol because I think that makes an acid. So. Plus alcohol is actually relatively cheap, and you can even use like probably vodka would kill something.
Well,
Cheap
no matter
vodka.
if there is,
Yeah,
it is a drinking.
Well, you'd have to thin the Everclear.
right.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty expensive sterilizer.
It's pretty cheap, actually. I was buying it when we couldn't find the sanitizer
Oh.
with COVID.
Yeah.
I would spray it.
That's what you say.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually didn't find one. I was looking for these during COVID, and I didn't find these large bottles till about 6 months ago. I was like, oh, they're finally back on the market. And I bought like 5 of them because I hadn't seen them for a while. Seal the bag with a heat sealer, and that's actually what this is. It just seals the bag up. And then you can also use clothespins to fold the bag up and clip it, which I did. I use the clothespins because they also survived the pressure cooker just fine. Some people, I've tried other things and they didn't work anywhere as effective as using clothespins does. And it keeps everything out until you're ready to use the bag. I usually fold it about 3 or 4 times, clothespin it, and then it goes into the pressure cooker, and the clothespins stay on until I use it. Once colonized, usually in about 10 days, you'll cut a U-shaped hole in the bag and store an area. But it's actually a little more specific than that. You actually take the bag and you'll usually clip a little hole in the corner. You want to get all the air out of it, and because you want to actually kill the supply of air at the source. You don't want to grow where the hole you're cut. I usually feel the bag and I actually flip it upside down. Then I cut a U-shaped hole in it, and then that goes into my chamber that I have in my house that allows me to grow them. And that's really the best way to do it. I've actually done a lot of experiments with growing the lion's mane. I've actually grown out of the top of the bags and out of the sides, out of the bottoms. They really grow anywhere, but a lot of them, the different species grow out of the sides. Shiitakes actually grow. They're actually I call it naked. So they actually, once they're fully colonized in the bag, I actually remove them completely out of the bag, and then they actually shoot out all over the block. And that's the only one that actually comes out of the bag. And it actually, it's really interesting, the enzyme that it makes as well. I was talking about the enzymes that kill bacteria. It actually, when I take it out of the bag, it looks like I killed something because it's blood red. The enzymes that it produces. And I don't have a shiitake bag here, but I find it really interesting, the different colors of enzymes that it produces as well. And this is the mushroom bag right here. This is 4 days made in 15 seconds.
And this comes out through the U cut.
Yeah, even it can be a small hole. These were kind of overripened, but because I kind of let them go too fast. Usually, you want to pick them right before the cap starts to fully open, and it'll fold too far open.
Now, what is the chamber you were talking
I'll show you pictures of that
Okay.
here. Yeah, then you see it's starting to fold over because they're way past. They've already dropped their spores. Right at the minute, you actually want to pick them the minute. Technically, the best is 5 hours before they drop their spores. And sometimes they do drop spores in my garden, inside of my fruiting chamber. But it's not a big deal. They actually they don't lose any taste or nutritional value. They just lost their spores. You can even I pick them and lay them on the counter, come back 2 hours later, and there'll be a white dust everywhere within a foot of it. And it just drops everywhere. Millions of spores. So many, in fact, that every breath we take, there's 5 mushroom spores in it on average. So,
Now, do you cut it back at the bag? Or do you put?
you can also just grab it by its base and twist it,
Oh, okay.
and then it breaks right off of there, and then it'll grow another one right out of it. So, but you want to make sure you remove all the mushrooms because the dead mushrooms can contaminate. Because the mushroom actually has no immune system once it grows, so something can land on it and then start to grow.
So each leaf is a mushroom or that whole thing is a mushroom?
Each one is. So once you cut it at the base and then you actually cut it back, which I'll show you some of them here. Now here's actually the pink oyster. You can see it has a base here, but if I cut it in a little more deeper, each mushroom is actually its own mushroom. So there's lots of golden oyster in there too. We have
Is chicken of the woods, oyster mushroom?
and then sometimes they grow smaller ones. Like this was a yellow oyster, golden oyster mushroom. It doesn't grow very big caps, but there's so many of them. Now, this one's probably a couple days old now since I picked it. But, and once you cut it back there, you can see I usually cut some of it off because you'll get some of this with it when you pick it, and then just cut it back. Throw it in your garden, a little extra nutrients. But yeah, that's usually how they grow. We also had one here. There's a shiitake. And these are the ones, like I said, they grow completely different. So they'll actually grow. You actually expose the whole bag, and they just shoot out all over. And they grow up. Sometimes in giant. The biggest one I actually grew was it was 12 ounces. It was a 12-ounce shiitake. It's posted on my Facebook. I don't think I'll ever get anything bigger than that because I actually forgot about it. I left it in there, and for some reason it kept growing even after it had opened, and it just grew to this giant size. This is your about average size. It's probably about 3 or 4 ounce shiitake to grow. And once you actually cut it up, it's actually a lot because it's thick.
So who's taught you all of it?
Myself, YouTube.
Is that it? Just
That pink mushroom you held up, that looks a lot like chicken in the woods.
Yeah.
The same thing.
No, it's that the pink oyster grows in a tropical region, so it doesn't grow. It actually doesn't even grow in the United States.
It's chicken in the woods and oyster milk.
Yeah, no, it's
I
not.
didn't think it was.
No, I
It
think
looks a lot.
chicken of the woods. I think has a little more orange in it.
Yeah.
If I remember. Watch it one more time because always people find it interesting, especially when I play it in a podcast. And you can even say it just kicks the tag out of the way. It doesn't even care. So it actually, I've seen it grow. It has a force behind it. I've actually seen it grow through this filter bag. Now I can't even poke my finger through that filter bag. So the amount of force that would take to pop a hole through it, it's crazy. But I've seen it do it. It'll keep pushing on it until it breaks through. So this is the fruiting tent that I have right here. It's actually it's a 5x10 tent. This 5x10 tent can literally grow 300 to 400 pounds of mushrooms a month in this small room. So once you start putting everything on space, and your ability to grow mushrooms is awesome. And really, see here is in my basement. Really, it stays at 58 to 70 degrees. I also have an optional air conditioner, and these are actually my old lights. And I have a funny story. The mycelium actually destroyed my lights. These lights come with an attachment to allow you to chain together another set of lights. The mycelium spores had actually fallen out of the mycelium of the mushrooms, landed on that electroid because they're attracted to electricity, and then they shorted it out in the light. And actually, when I saw it, I'm like, there was a massive spores on the end of it, and they had shorted out the light. Huh? The equipment worked as needed to actually shut the lights off, but it actually left a little black mark on my tent and started firing. like I said, the equipment worked like it should have and shut off. Yeah, and there's even studies that show if you could hook up a DC current to this bag, it will produce 40% more mushrooms. If you put electricity and let it go through the bag. There are countless studies at universities who have done that, and it's really intriguing. So that's how mycelium communicates. It's electrical impulses, just like our brain works between our nerve synapses. It does the same thing.
A little bit scary.
Yeah, I mean we share 40% of a mushroom's DNA. That's really intriguing, and how many aspects we are so similar to them, and how they breathe, how they produce, and how they live. That was really one of the things that drew me in as well, because I had never spent a week in fungi in high school, and so once I started getting more into it and watching YouTube, my mind was just really blown. And this is the main thing that allows me to do this. It's an ultrasonic mist fogging humidity system that I actually built myself. And these are actually things that are usually used in fogging machines. You'll see them in ponds or something to create fog or Halloween decorations. And actually, what they use some kind of disc. I don't really understand how it works. The disc, electricity produces some kind of steam, but I am actually able to produce a whole bunch of steam. And this is actually my old system. I actually updated. Now I have all PVC as well instead of the flexible duct. So yeah, this machine produces. It's all set up by itself. Everything runs by itself. Am I overrun?
I don't know what it goes to 1:15. I wasn't paying attention. I enjoyed
Well,
it.
it's to the end.
Well, you
some
go
slack.
ahead and finish.
But yeah, this is really how it allows me to do everything that I do. This machine is the most important thing, because without it, I wouldn't be able to create the humidity that is required for that. You can use smaller humidity systems, but they just don't work. It's good but it really depends on how big your tent is as well. So this is the lab too. I actually use a lab as a tent, and this is my device that actually brings in clean, sterile air through another filter, brings it through a HEPA filter, and allows me to work in a clean, sterile air environment. So I don't have to use that. I'll just stand in front of this, and it blows clean air at me and allows me to do a lot of the sterile work I need to. And I'm in the middle of actually upgrading this into a bedroom now, into a room that will allow me to do a lot more things.
So how big is the room? How big is your?
The lab,
Yeah.
they're both 5 by 10 tents,
This is in your home?
and yeah, my basement. So I'm also, I don't really use medical marijuana anymore, but I have in the past, but I still do enjoy growing it. So I grow cannabis as well, and some other tents, which, believe it or not, they actually grow really well together. Because the marijuana actually requires CO2 to grow, and expels oxygen. So you can literally exchange the rooms, but I can't because the temperatures are too extreme. But you could do an air exchange, and it would actually work in harmony with each other.
Is there any Department of Ag or Public Health groups you have to join through?
With mushrooms?
Yeah.
No.
For selling and.
They don't. I'm invited everywhere, and nobody ever says anything. I even had the food inspector come up at the farmer's market. I didn't even see him. Looked at the stuff, and he walked on. So nobody really cares.
Interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. What's that?
Next slide.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I have a website too. I didn't have the greatrivermushrooms.com, which is on a lot of the pamphlets and stuff.
Did you get the pen?
Yeah.
Can you freeze dry mycelium and have them come back?
I don't know. It's a good question. Probably not.
Because I know you can freeze dry it like. That's what they do.
Yeah.
Then they touch the water and they're fine.
I don't know. The
I got a few.
fungi is different than that stuff that they do. Some of those require man-made. They require certain extreme temperatures. Cold, very cold.
Very interesting.
Thank you.
I was looking at her, she said, oh, that's just Brian's review.
Yes. I didn't bring a lot of it today, but because actually, I work for a roofing company full time. Project manager.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great-
Fine.
I sell TBD, CBG products. There's certain things like pain. Pain management is one of the benefits of CBD, CBG. Mushrooms are a lot more, like your mind.
So you want to, now you talk about this thing, marijuana. I used to have it, but I don't do anything. Why? As far as
Like psychedelic ones,
Yeah.
but a lot more extreme.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, it's more of a ego releasing experience, something that nothing else can simulate besides psychedelics. Because it actually, it shuts off a portion of your brain and allows you to think without having the presence of the ego. I have,
You have
I think it's a similar effect. So I know that the mushrooms really, what they do is they actually shut off a portion of your brain that actually allows other regions to communicate. So they can bring a lot of awareness to things that you weren't aware of because that portion of your brain was blocking. So that's why a lot of times these people are having, depression releasing experiences on psychedelics because it allows them to become aware of like, hey, this is why I am the way I am. And once you're aware of that, you can start to heal.
So I've got a kit from my daughter, mushroom kit. I was 2 years old. I never did anything with it because I thought I was kind of outside, propagate some ground and everything to dry where I'm at. And it's just a kit, so I can do it inside.
Yeah. And there's a chance you might be able to get it to grow. You never know. You never know.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Do you ship your products?
I do. That's what I do.
Somebody website.
Oh, yeah, so on your website, CBD will be available.
Yeah. I actually ran out of yeah. There's also reviews on there too. You can check a lot of people love reviews. Lion's Mane is one of the most popular products that a person does reviews on there. It works, and I've had people tell me they bought the name brands.
Black man has.
No. So I sell the CBD, CBG capsules, and it actually allows you to use it during the day. CBG actually kind of counteracts the sleepy part that CBD does. That's why they work really great together. Yeah. And like I said, that's honestly what I use it for. I actually have 2 other people who have bipolar who use the product. It helps them a lot, especially with this part.
This stuff on your list.
Yeah.
You sell these
Yes.
on your website?
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I love your
Well, thank you. What's going on, everybody? Time to change over to the next class.
Are you got cookies in here?
Yeah, just gotta get all my equipment out now.
My son is dealing with all kinds of mental, they had a hard time discovering what his was. Yeah, he was always anxious, and social anxiety as a kid, but he did pretty good through school, and then after working at the prison, Sterling for 25 years, it just was about the end of it, and, he has found that they give him those psychedelic type treatments and helping him now. And he probably could benefit from something better like this.
Yeah.
I think it would be healthier. Have him talk to you sometime.
Yeah.
Learn something about.
That's why I have a podcast too.
I'll have to tell him about that.
It's a rumination project, but try to keep it selling. I have people all the time. You sell psychedelic mushrooms? Like, no, I'm not going to openly sell them illegal.
No.
Do you have the mushrooming bags that you sell? I mean,
I don't have any with me today,
Okay.
but I normally do.
That's all right.
I do-
You're in Quincy though, right?
Yeah, because I actually I'm a project manager for a roofing company. That's actually
Okay.
what I do.
On the main,
No, I only do farmer market. I have a physical location, and I do what I call pickup.
okay,
So people, I actually have a place, shelf on my house.
okay,
People can pick it up and leave cash and safe.
awesome. Because I'm usually in Quincy, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, so if you make an order, actually on the website, it'll show pickup, and then you select the time, time slot like that.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Sorry, if you hear me talking to my computer, I am just talking to some on the line.
Podcast.
Yeah. It looks like got 7 people in there still.
I heard that some are finding morels,
Yeah.
mushrooms around us already.
Yeah, we're trying to get there, aren't we?
I would think it'd be too cold.
It can be in some places, but the soil temperature
Yeah.
varies in different locations.
Yeah.
So good shape.
What?
So cute. Yeah.
I just forgot butter, but I can make it work.
Young lady with 100 pound. Enthusiastic about those. Oh, yeah. I know. Young lady that we spoke, her grandfather was often, he was French. And he knew that they in Illinois, he was kind of, you know, he spent more time. Well, there's a whole organization you can join, you're not joining that one. I'm not very supportive to one. I do see they introduced the volunteering program. What did they? I tried to, I haven't. Contribution?
We did.
Yeah.
Was there an introduction?
This right here.
Yeah, thank you. You needed to move it out of the way. Thanks.
So did you like the first time that you took it? That making the. I'm trying to down something.
Oh, I know. That's why I don't do the same thing.
Needed to town. Get out of country, home and move it to town. So. Since we have. We have to be. Get rid of. We ran farm ground. Yeah. We're gonna move in town. We're looking at place. Yep.
So I'm afraid it's my husband's.
You can't.
Yeah. Well, so we went over to do it.
We have a walk the dog. We
Oh,
have
that's
that.
still right.
Sir,
It's a-
I can't attend your lecture.
Oh,
I've heard that you're not. I need to.
Oh, okay.
Oh, don't hold. Just say. Thank you, thank you.
I brought you a brownie.
Oh, thank you.
And so.
You have one there, you know, where we are, you know, we have a girl who lives on the couch and sits up on the bed, which we're not crazy about.
It's all done.
Yeah.
Put that information on. Sometimes she comes up on.
You always on the wire bed,
Not often, I think like white in the middle, like at the end.
the poor young woman's perfectly.
Good, my husband came to the previous session. Can you read that?
Smells like mushrooms.
Oh,
just look, just.
it was almost like. Yeah.
I'm so embarrassed.
Is it okay if I take that?
Yeah.
Well, she she's never. You know, she's like, maybe one of you ignored, but she was just. Oh.
And I guess when,
Get that right.
you know, she's, sleeps all day and just kind of hangs around, so.
I don't know. I think it's lady's name.
You're ready, getting in.
I think we are.
All right, it's been a day. Now time for fun and cooking.
Trying to make the room smell interesting.
Yeah. We want to thank you for spending the day with us. Fill out the survey evaluation. We take it very seriously. The good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. So we can plan for next year. You can leave it in this room or just drop it off at the registration table when you leave. Welcome to How to Cook Mushrooms. I'm so looking forward to this. We have all these zany mushrooms, and every time I get them, I'm like, it's not a portobello. How do I cook?
Yeah.
What do I do? This is Dan Barrett. He's the owner of Great River Mushrooms, a veteran-owned gourmet mushroom and supply company out of Quincy. So we came quite a distance to be with us. Dan was the middle child of three, born July 19th, 1983. A stroke before midnight in Quincy, Illinois, making him a night owl for life. You and the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Dan graduated from Quincy High School in 2002, went into the Illinois National Guard
Infantry Airborne Unit in Bartonville, Illinois, straight out of high school. His hobbies of mushroom farming sparked even more fascination with life in general and made him look even deeper into a holistic lifestyle, finding many health-related answers in nature. It is the very reason he started his business. Dan hoped to educate people on the power of mushrooms and herbal medicine and show people that nature provides everything we need. Dan wants to educate how you can become sustainable by growing mushrooms at home yourself and cooking with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, like she said, I'm Dan Baird. A lot of you were just in the previous class with me, and they were cooking mushrooms is actually is pretty easy. It's more the intimidation part is looking at these mushrooms, like she said, and like that's not a portobello. And this is actually your pink oyster species. This is the the same one that's over there, the tarragon mushroom, which is actually one of the world's newest species. Oyster species was only discovered in 2021 near a castle in London. It only grew in that part of the woods. So there are mushrooms that are still yet to be discovered, and that's why even a novice mycelium or mycologist can make a big difference in the world of mycology. And there are species even in our area that have yet to be discovered as well. Scientists have only think that we have discovered like 200,000 of 1.4 million different mushrooms. So we're not even halfway there. And they have the ability to literally change in 5 years. They can evolve that quickly into a whole new species of mushrooms if the environment changes, and they have to. And the other two ones are actually, this is your elm oyster, and this is shiitake mushroom. Shiitake usually they grow all gnarly like that. They actually grow out of a block that sometimes they'll grow out of the side of the block, which makes them look like that. See where the stem is on the side of the block. And I grow all these indoors in my garden, which is why you saw the pictures from the previous class. And we'll start again with why we actually want to cook mushrooms, because they do have a lot of nutrients. These are the big nutrients that mushrooms have, and why you want to cook at home, why you want to eat mushrooms in the first place. Is they're very healthy for you. They have a lot of really good gut health, a lot of immune health benefits to them. And that's all. Some of you saw the lion's mane that it's so powerful that I actually sell it as an herbal supplement. It causes a lot of provides a lot of gut relief and helps strengthen the gut brain connection, which a lot of science is discovering is very important. It was only 30 years ago we thought our digestive system was just an area to digest food, take the nutrients in, and expel the nutrients. But we're discovering today that our gut is literally the center of everything in our body. Serotonin's made there, so mushrooms really provide the nutrients that the gut really needs. Especially the lion's mane. And again, a lot of mushrooms do contain the D vitamin. So mushrooms actually they don't require light to grow, but the more light, ultraviolet light they are exposed to, they can then produce vitamin D, which then you can actually eat. And the produce aisle's only natural source of vitamin D, which can be increased by exposing mushrooms to a controlled amount of the ultraviolet light. And the mushrooms are fat-free, low-calorie, nutrient-dense, and low in sodium. So they are fat-free. I mean, they're really eating mushrooms is just healthy for you as long as you are not allergic to them, which a lot of us tend to be. I don't actually eat them as much anymore because my gut has been causing issues, but I've been working through it and eventually probably be able to eat mushrooms again. And like I said, the immune response, rich in selenium, a mineral that helps the immune system function properly. And there's a lot more than that. If you actually research a specific mushroom, it goes way more in depth. I can't even fit on the screen. So, fresh versus dried mushrooms. Dried mushrooms have a more concentrated umami flavor and chewy texture and need to be rehydrated before use. Due to being slightly chewy, they make better additions to stews, stocks, and soups, but are also fine to use just as you would fresh oyster mushrooms. Now, some of these are actually starting to get a little bit hard that they make better for soup as they start to age, because mushrooms, that's the hard thing about marketing these is I have to sell them within a week. Sometimes the pink oyster starts to deteriorate in 3 days. So I really have to then they'll start to dry up. So then they're more or less meant for soups, stews and stuff. But so you really want to use your fresher mushrooms for when you're pan frying or boiling or anything like that. Well, actually boiling, the dried mushrooms work as well good too.
How about their pickled mushrooms?
They probably have the same health benefits. They're just stored for long-term use.
He tasted some from a restaurant. Now he buys them.
Huh.
He
I've never
buys
had
them.
I've never seen it.
Yes. They're not, he likes them. He makes some of my pickle juice recipe for cucumbers and adds to the pickle juice because they're not, it's very flat when he gets them. So he adds a little bit of the spice to them, but he loves them. I'm not as fond of them as he is.
Yeah.
I'm glad he's eating them because I think they're
Well,
healthy.
if you pickle them, you can there's probably hundreds of flavors, so,
Yeah.
and it flavors as much as what you put in there. But I've read a little bit into it and not pickling it, but pretty interesting. And like I said, fresh mushrooms on the other hand are lighter in the palate, absorb more flavor, and are more versatile when it comes to texture. They can be chewy, crispy, or meat, depending on the method you use to cook them. And tips on how to prepare the mushrooms. Really, the only way you really have to rinse them if they grow outdoors. The indoor mushrooms, I never rinse, and I do not recommend to rinse because they're already ready to cook. There's no bugs in them or anything like that. And soaking is also a bad thing. I know a lot of people soak the morels, but really, unless it's a really buggy season, and that does make sense sometimes. But most of the time, you can get the bugs out from just running under cold water. And then wipe them with a paper towel before they absorb the water, because once they start to absorb water, they start to kind of deteriorate and fall apart. So that's just easy as that. They're ready to use to cook. And these are a lot of the different, more popular methods. Skillet really is the simplest, and we'll kind of go over that today. Oven baked, I've actually never cooked them in the oven, but I imagine if you put them in a recipe, you could cook them in a casserole or something like that. Deep fried in oil, that's always a great method, but the air fryer now seems to be the more popular choice nowadays. It's replacing a lot of the fried oil, which can be a healthier choice for you as well. So this is a small air fryer. And you got grilled. I don't remember the difference between grilled and skillet. It's slightly, I think you use more of a butter and olive oil on the skillet, and it's a little more drier when you grill it. So, but I've never grilled it on the grill because a lot of times it just strips off a lot of the stuff you want to have in it. So I usually, if you do cook them on the grill, you more or less want to put them on some foil or something. Boiled, steamed. And those are really I think there's about 15 different methods. I looked online once, but these are the top 7 that really you only need to know. You get into cooking mushrooms at home. And we'll do this one says a rice cooker. We'll do the air fryer first because I remember that one took the longest. So I'm not doing specifically this stuff, but I'm going to make one with an egg cracker mix and try to show you that a lot of these mushrooms actually do taste similar to morels, because that's how a lot of people prepare morels, is the cracker egg method. And then I'll use a few of these. Now, these are just recipes in general that you could use. You can use buttermilk. I mean, once you get into the more exotic recipes, really the sky's the limit. But really, just salt, pepper. You want to make sure you salt after you cook them, because if you put salt while they're cooking, you actually take away the moisture. And mushrooms are about 70% moisture, and that's really where a lot of their flavor comes from. So always salt afterwards. That's really important too. And other than that, it's pretty straightforward. And we'll try the tarragon. I actually have not tried the tarragon mushroom yet, but actually the first time I've grown it this week, I even haven't had a chance to eat it yet. But that's the one.
It looked like a ceramic.
Yeah. The last year's class, somebody came in and touched it, and he broke it, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, it's real!" I'm like,
I
yeah.
was looking at the attractive base. That's the top of the bag. It's all it was actually about.
This is like I said, the tarragon. It has usually a creamy gray color with some brown splotching. That one, you can see how they grow kind of differently. That one had was probably sitting in the top.
Oh, yeah.
It was probably sitting in the top region of my fruiting tent, and it wasn't getting quite as much moisture. So a lot of times it'll grow really weird like that, but it doesn't affect the flavor.
Do you find that at a base of a tree or growing on the ground, or where would you find
Yeah,
that?
so you can see that this right here would come out of, and all oyster species they grow out of hardwood species of any kind of wood. So
Because I've seen a lot of those, but I never picked them because I don't want to kill anybody.
yeah, well, and most of the ones around like this mushroom wouldn't be around here in nature. This is actually from London. So, but the ones you'll see around here are your oyster or lion's mane, or you'll see sometimes chaga, or there's just so many different mushrooms. But if you actually go up into the northwest, they have so many other species of mushrooms, like in Washington and Oregon. It's crazy. Yeah, you'll usually see them just growing out of a wood, dead tree. Sometimes, like chaga grows out of a live tree, is actually a parasitic mushroom, so it actually kills its host. One of the few mushrooms that actually does. That's why chaga is actually one of the most expensive mushrooms. Like it's $60 a pound, because it takes 2 years to grow and it kills your tree.
Oh.
So usually it'll kill it in 10 years, and it'll start the whole tree will just not be very healthy. Not really sure why it would want to kill its own host, but that's what the way that it works.
It's like every species has some.
Yeah.
Some of those.
So when you actually prepare them, you'll see, and if you ever buy them from me or most of the time from other gourmet companies, they cut this part off. I always 20% to 30% of the stuff is not really edible. Now you could eat that, it is, but it's not. It's hard and it has other things in it. So usually I try to get to where the mushrooms actually separate. And now you can see you got a stem and you got your cap. And you can actually feel it too. So as you get more towards that base, you'll actually, this one too has a little bit harder stem. So you want to get to that softer part. So we'll have all our mushrooms separated.
Should you cut off the end of, say you buy bud mushrooms, should you cut off the end and stuff?
You can, but if most of the time when they produce those, they're producing, in their acres indoors.
Yeah.
So they're in a really fast hurry to cut them. They try to cut them as much down to the base as they can because it adds more weight to their end inventory when they sell it. But it's kind of like when you buy an apple and you're paying for the weight, but there may be like a small portion that you can't eat. That's what way some similar mushrooms growers see that. Now I try to cut everything off that is and give you 100% edible. There are other mushroom companies that don't, because that can add up to a lot of weight when you pick it, and you have a bigger mass that you can't eat, like this one here has a good stump on it that you probably shouldn't want to eat. So when you start mixing your egg, like I said, I'm just going to do a simple egg cracker recipe. Mix it in a bag, just like a lot of people see. You see people doing morels.
Can you do this with any mushroom?
Pretty much. It really is a preference. They all cook the same. Even the people just a lot of people do get intimidated by the mushroom look, and they think they have to grow differently than a portobello. But the portobello was actually produced because it grows so fast, but it actually has the least amount of nutrition. I actually don't even consider portobello a gourmet anymore, because it was back in the 30s when they chose a mushroom. Whenever they decided to mass produce mushrooms, they picked that mushroom in particular for that reason. But the faster they grow, the least nutrition they have.
Oh.
And I think those grow really fast. But again, the blue oyster does grow really fast. It grows in 10 days, but it does have a lot more vitamins and stuff than portobello.
From what I understood, one grove used to have the mushrooms up there. And but they would say that the darker the color, the longer it had been forgotten back in a corner, that had more nutrients.
Could be right. I mean, the shiitake,
Now this would be just
this takes 2 months to grow. I mean, it takes 2 months to colonize for you able to grow it. That's why the shiitake costs more. And you can see it is darker. The
No,
chop-
these are the portobellos.
Oh, okay.
The white ones.
Oh, I thought you meant just mushrooms in general. I've never heard of that.
All the different mushrooms, these different mushrooms have different flavors.
Yeah. So the pink oyster actually has a fishy taste. So that has more of a seafood fishy. Your blue oyster is a meaty taste. Your elm oyster will have a meaty kind of nutty taste. Shiitake tastes like sirloin steak. That's what it does. And I went to a 4th of July party with like 75 people, and I brought shiitake, and I was like the talk of the party. People were like, "How does that taste like steak?" There were a bunch of men there. I'm like, "I thought the mushroom," and they were just shocked. And it's the truth. It really does.
Take one of those to a wild game sometime.
Yeah, and people are shocked because they never had a shiitake that it literally tastes like a sirloin steak. And a lot of times, that's the one, the sirloin, the shiitake is the one that I pan fry because it gives it that taste. You don't really want to add anything to it. The shiitake just has that natural taste. The lion's mane tastes like crab meat. And that one is. And you can actually feel, if you eat lion's mane, you can feel the neurological effects. And that's why I sell it, because it actually Alzheimer's preventative. The lion's mane actually can prevent Alzheimer's by actually preventing the buildup of amyloid beta, which is what leads to Alzheimer's, is what we're discovering. So lion's mane has that effect too. And I've been to parties where a lot of people consume lion's mane. Everybody's like, I feel some kind of high. And it's a neurological effect of feeling. It just makes you feel really good, and it tastes good. You can't beat. I think they like crab meat. I like it.
No, I'm not husband, but he didn't. I didn't tell him that because it's, you know, I see these things. He just doesn't know it. But if I didn't test him,
It's really good for your brain.
I've also had grow the chestnut mushroom too. The chestnut it's a brown mushroom with white spots all over it, and it tastes. It was a meaty sirloin taste too. It was really good. That one is very difficult to grow, and I have to grow instead. So we'll just dip these in here. Just gonna dip the mushrooms in there, and I'll probably cut them in half here. You don't. It's better if you do slice them up, but I mean, if you're gonna boil them or air fry them, I don't think it's necessary. They'll just cook a little faster. But the pink oysters are actually a lot thinner than these. You can see how thick they are, and I'll show you how thick the shiitakes are even thicker. So I'll probably just cut them into a couple smaller pieces, and then probably split them in half. It's just fine in this case with the size of these mushrooms. A lot of times you can even do it by hand. So if you it's kind of like a tree. If you break it, there's actually a point. Oh, I broke my glove. There's a point where it'll just tear apart really easily without even a knife. The bad thing about wearing gloves is your hands get, we are cooking these, so it's not going to kill us. I run into the same problem in my lab. I'll get a hole in my glove, and then my hands will be sweaty from having the glove on, and you can't get the other glove on. And it's important in my lab that you have gloves to stay clean. Again, finer the better. Does anybody still use crackers and eggs?
I do. I put them in a plastic bag and roll.
Yeah.
I didn't get real fine.
Yeah, I do have that plastic bag. Whoops. I didn't bring a rolling pin.
But you can pound it. If you don't get
Sure.
it. Pound it good. In fact, that round bowl was made on plastic. Another little hair on it. Don't leave it. completely see you have it. Blow your bag out. I just want it to open slightly so that you're here.
Oh, very good.
Dan, do you sell these locally in Quincy, or is it pretty much all? like,
Online, I sell a lot of herbal supplements online, and obviously it's hard to ship mushrooms, but Quincy Farmers Market where I sell my mushrooms. And they just started a winter market, so but usually I'm April, October, and then I kind of cut back on selling them because there's not many markets too. I have my own brand of cream of mushroom soup that I've actually started to make. I sell elderberry syrup too, and so there's other products that I introduce, and I'm also working on my own coffee brand. Well, it's actually a coffee alternative with mushrooms. We're gonna use like honey and cocoa and make it more something that it can be a coffee alternative to give you a lot of energy in the morning. Not actually have coffee in it.
Where's the farmer's market in Quincy?
Washington Park.
Washington.
Oh, sorry.
I had a question for you. You mentioned benefits of lion's mane, but you're not saying much about turkey tail. So how do they compare?
The turkey tail is actually more of a prebiotic, and it's for gut health and really for people who might have cancer or cancerous tendencies in their family. It actually has a lot of stuff in it that is only found in that mushroom that can help kill cancer. There's actually a lot of studies to prove that. And there's a famous mycologist whose mother was 96, and he shares a story about how she was too old to receive your normal treatment for cancer. So he gave her a regimen of 6 months of, like, he was giving her 5,000 milligrams a day of turkey tail, which the recommended dose is about 1,000. And they were able to, 6 months, the cancer had completely disappeared. That was breast cancer. It works. A lot of the research shows that it works better towards digestive cancers. That really works well in those. Just shake them up. Did I get them all in there? Yeah, that's what a lot of the research shows, but it does have effects on all cancer. But a lot of the research is showing the digestive system.
So do you recommend the mix then that has?
The mix is literally a product I just added this week. That's why I don't have. I usually have I have turkey tail and then reishi pamphlets, but I don't have them made yet. That's why I just have the lines made. But the mix, I imagine, is probably going to become my most popular product. To get the milligrams, though, you kind of have to take a couple more because I can only fit so many milligrams in one capsule. So, so like the 500 milligrams, you have to take 2 a day. And if you took the mixed capsule to get the same milligrams of each one, you'd have to take 6 of them. Then you would get your 1,000 milligrams of each mushroom, which is the recommended dosage.
So then what's the specialty for the ratio?
The what?
Well, what is it target?
I'm still have to learn that. So I literally just started making that yesterday. And usually when I start to introduce something to because mushroom producing, it takes, you're constantly have to learn something. So usually I don't try to learn something until I have everything else ready.
Yeah.
So the reishi is something I still have to educate myself on, but I think it's good. It has immune benefits and kind of the similar effects to the reishi.
Thank you.
Yeah, constantly adding new products and changing. That's the thing about mushroom growing is you have to constantly never stop learning. And I've only been in it for 3 years, and before that, I knew absolutely nothing about mushrooms. We're gonna put these in the air fryer and turn that on here. It smells really good. If I remember this, the cooking class last year was the first time I actually made them in an air fryer, and I was surprised at how well they taste. And now that's usually my only method of cooking a lot of things now.
My daughter's done So,
Gloves are more of a hassle. Yeah, the Germex.
well, her husband was off weight, so he was steaming and doing stuff, and then they got the air fryer. She said, really, I likes this.
Well, I,
And I just usually set it, let's set 360, 10 minutes. It really doesn't take a lot of heat or do it.
sorry, what was that?
360 for probably, I'm gonna 10 minutes. Probably every air fryer is kind of different.
Right.
Usually you can open it up after turning it on and see how it's cooking. I prefer my mushrooms crispy, so I usually apply a little more heat. Some people, don't like them as crispy, but it's really up to your preference after that.
How do you know out in the woods that you're not getting a poison?
It's gotta be very aware and just probably not risk it. I know there's a lot of the mushrooms that are you can eat are pretty easy to tell. If you can't tell, that it's probably just not worth it, or there's a reason people aren't eating a lot of them because they probably just don't taste good. Other than that, you can usually find a lot of the mushrooms that grow this time of year are not toxic or not poisonous. They're just the false morels though that are poisonous that look similar to morels, but actually once you see them both, you're like, well, they look actually really different.
They're more linear.
Yeah. But people do mistake the false morels for real morels, and that's just because that's more. Even though there is a pretty significant difference once you see them side by side. So we'll pan fry the shiitakes. Do now.
So I have the dry shiitake. What should I do with them? I mean, can I put them in a batter too, or will they be like?
They're probably at that point better to use as a spice. You could grind them up and add them to other food.
Okay.
If they're too dried up, you can put them in water and they'll actually rehydrate. But sometimes it's too far. Shiitakes actually store the longest too. They'll actually store for weeks. And that's why I love to grow them as well, because they not only do they sell well at the market and they sell for a higher price, but they last for a long time too. That's why they're a popular choice by chefs too. So when the chef buys them, he doesn't have to cook them all at once. He can make different recipes within a 2 or 3 week time span, and the mushrooms will still be good.
You store them in a brown paper bag? Is that what that's what I've heard.
Yeah, well, yeah, you can, but really the colder temperatures, like a cold freezer, kind of makes them better, kind of stagnates the decaying process. But cold temps do also make the mushrooms can get hard and crispy. But it's better than them rotting in your fridge, which tends to happen. Then they're actually no good because they'll actually the mycelium will start to reheat itself.
Smells good. They come out of your bag, just two, put in bags.
Yeah, just like that one over there, yeah.
All right.
And I usually cut off the whole stem of shiitake. The stem of shiitake is absolutely not any good in my opinion.
Holes in the bag when you do the shiitake so they can come out all around.
No, the shiitakes actually grow naked. So as I refer to it, the bag, I actually colonize the bag.
Yeah.
This is actually lion's mane in here. You actually see it start to grow on lion's mane. But a shiitake will take 2 months to fully colonize, and then I actually remove it out of the whole bag.
So they grow inside the bag.
No, they grow out. I remove the bag together and they
They come out, then they come out.
Yeah, and then they shoot out all over the block.
So it's like a block.
Yeah, and the shiitakes are more difficult to grow indoors for the fact you have to take them out of the bag. At that point, their risk to contamination is higher because they're now exposed to an open environment.
Have you ever grown them outside in the lawn?
No, but when I throw the bags in my pile outside, they do grow mushrooms. Especially after it rains, they even a year later they'll see an oyster mushroom shooting out of the pile. And,
You just put them in compost?
I actually have a pile that I'm trying to make a new product. For gardening, and I'm also making a garden supplement. It's going to be mixed with soil so people can use to actually grow like vegetables. So yeah, I'm working on other products too, because these bags that I have, once they grow mushrooms, they can be used for other things. I actually have another product that I developed. I haven't completely finished it yet. It produces CO2 for cannabis growers, and it'll increase the CO2 level by like 300 to 400 ppm within 2 hours. Just a bag that size, because the mycelium produces CO2, and that's what cannabis needs to grow. So they were a popular thing that I had, but I couldn't consistently make the same every time. So I'm still figuring out the exact way to produce the most CO2. But I usually use them for that as well. Like I said, here's the cut one in half. You can see that is nothing but solid mushroom. That's the shiitake mushroom, and I usually cut them in like you would cut a steak. I like cutting them in strips like that. You can just cook them because it is a thick mushroom, and you can't cook it just like that. Expect it to, just like a steak. Thicker it is, the harder, longer it takes. And you can also see too that you can clearly see in that one too where you got the mushroom, and then you actually have the gill. You see the slightly browner yellow, and that's where the gill starts. That gill holds all the spores that eventually drops out. Now, of course, you can eat those as well too, but when you cut it in half, you can actually clearly see that. And this one, like I said, you really don't want to use much when you cook a pan fry. You want just olive oil. And I have a lot of other stuff you can use. I prefer pepper and onion. These are my two favorite: garlic powder, pepper, and plus garlic powder is good for your gut as well. So you can really help improve, add more nutrients to your to the mushroom. And this is actually a gourmet called cracked pepper stuff. So I like putting a lot of different kinds of pepper, which I didn't even know there were different kinds of pepper. Recently, you get pepper corn, and a little bit of thyme. I use that actually in my cream of mushroom soups, the thyme, and yeah, those are really the only three things that I use. And then put the salt on last, and we'll see if this is able to cook. It should be able to. I did in my last class. We used to cook the piece much like this.
So if I have the mushrooms in the freezer, do I thaw them or do I cook them right from the freezer?
Well, you want to thaw them. But usually, if they're going to be in the freezer, they're probably going to only be good for soups.
Okay.
At that point, they probably, because once you freeze them, they're kind of, yeah, and then if you thaw them out. So I usually, like I said, when you want to pan fry or use some of these methods, you really want fresher mushrooms. And then the ones that, as they get older, are really good for soups.
Okay.
And, throw that on and let it heat up. I usually like cooking on medium heat and cooking a little slower. It's actually cooking pretty fast. They're done like that. That was fast. That's done. I'm absorbing the taste because that's the first time I've tasted a tarragon. So it's really a good taste. It tastes kind of like a blue oyster, but I think it needs maybe 2 cups more. And you can use butter as well. I don't like to use butter. I'm 40 years old, so I'm trying to make healthier choices in my life. I use a lot of coconut oil, olive oil, and I try to avoid butters and add other things to it. But you can cook with butter. That's fine. It does add that butter taste. But I like to actually have the taste of the mushroom. So I prefer to use olive oil. And again, you always want to use a good olive oil. A lot of you probably cook out there and you realize the cheap olive oils do not cook the same as like this brand, which is, unfortunately, this is like $15 now for this bottle. But You just lay them off flat. I did not bring the lid, so hopefully it doesn't splash too much. It actually looks like mustaches. That's what I always thought they looked like. Yeah, you almost wear one. So they absorb oil really fast too. So sometimes you have to keep adding oil. Like, where did the oil go? And the mushroom is just keep absorbing it. So that is one of the better things of using butter too. Olive oil, it seems to absorb olive oil a lot faster. But olive oil is good for you, and you can absorb it into the mushrooms and eat it as well. But that's the bad thing. Cooking with mushrooms, they reabsorb moisture so fast. So you don't, unless you like them crispy, like the grilled recipe, you really want to make sure that there's something kind of on there. We'll probably put a few up here and then we'll kind of try them all. I got some more egg. We'll try the pink oyster. I'm actually interested in how that's going to taste on the egg anyway. And this, I think, this pink oyster was just picked last night. And I've been updating my mushroom facility. And the humidity must have been too low. So what happens if the humidity gets too low? The mushrooms actually grow a little bit. It's a little bit more firm. There's more moisture in my head that actually there's a lot more that lands on the mushroom and it actually gets a lot more delicate. So there are different kinds of, like, you can feel a mushroom, and depending on how it's grown, they can feel a little bit different. But it doesn't affect the cooking. This mushroom will cook just as fine as it was if it was delicate or a little bit firm. And that's why I adjusted this morning. I turned on the humidity more, and when you grow mushrooms, you kind of have to constantly adjust to the growing environment, or to the outdoor environment too, that may come from the house. And the pink oysters, you see, they actually grow they kind of look like one mushroom. So you kind of have to tear them off. And right where it tears off is usually where the best part is, because once it gets closer to that base again. And it's also pink all the way through. Yeah. It's like even the gill is very pink. You can see the bottom gill is very pink, but then your top is so it's really interesting too. Beautiful mushroom. That's the one that if I have at farmer's market, it draws people in. And they see it and they're like, "What is that?" Yeah, this one actually has this one grew out. Sometimes when they grow out of the bag, they actually form a knot to get them out of the bag more if the condition's not perfect. And they'll grow a little knot, and then the mushrooms will grow off of that knot. And these actually, the pink oysters tear apart really easy. Literally, they pull apart, and you can see they kind of have. Most of the oyster species do. The shiitakes, not so much. You definitely have to use a knife.
Are these recipes on the website too?
I don't, but Google.
Yeah.
That's what I tell, because there are so many recipes, and really in the matter of preference, because I could give you a recipe, but then you're like, well, I don't like that ingredient. But like I said, garlic powder and pepper and a little bit of olive oil is usually the majority of what I use a lot of times. Plus, it's so fast. Like, you can put them in a pan, and then 10 minutes later, you're eating them. They're already ready to turn over here. These are actually, to my preference, I actually like them crispy.
I think
was only one that I found the blue oysters available at a health food store. The rest of the time you just find the small packages dehydrated.
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that at County Market. They have dehydrated mushrooms, but a lot of times the grocery stores will struggle to sell them fast enough before they go bad, so they'll either be dehydrated or in a bag. So that's where the farmer's market comes into play, where you can get those fresh things. I don't think, even if a grocery store asked me to sell it at their store, it would be very difficult to keep them fresh, because even if they'd sell them after 3 days, they'd start to rot. And they don't smell very good when they start to decay.
Only a couple of times I've seen those available.
Yeah, I've seen them at, like I said, a County Market, but it's hit and miss. I think one of them was a shiitake, and they outsource them from like hundreds of miles away. They're like, they'll say where it's from, and it's nowhere near here. And I saw that Home Depot, it was Home Depot, they had a huge inventory of pink oyster mushroom bags. It was the most random thing I'd ever seen. I walk into Home Depot and there was a whole display of pink oyster bags. And I'm like, Home Depot's starting to be my competitor? Like, it didn't make any sense.
Take a number. Many competitors.
That was the only time I ever saw them carry them. And then I saw a few people in Quincy buying them, and I'm like, well, maybe I need to, advertise mine more, but it's hard to. But they were actually really small pink oyster bags. They probably made like a half a pound of mushrooms, and they were selling for $20, which is the same price that I sell. That makes a pound and a half to 2.5, 1.5 to 2.5 pounds. These are done. But move away. And these again are the shiitakes. My favorite mushrooms. I think I need the tongs. It's a little more difficult to do in a classroom.
What days the farmer's market open on Quincy?
It starts in May outdoors, and it's every Saturday from
Every Saturday.
8 to 1.
Okay.
But I think we're trying to talk them into doing maybe 9, because the winter market's been 9, and nobody, you get like 5 people that come at 8, and nobody comes between 8 and 9, because a lot of the people we get are families that have kids, and they just can't get there that early. So, yeah, we're there at 8. Might change to 9 this year. Sometimes they don't stick very well too, so we'll just pan fry these. And these are the pink oysters. It's just a little bit of an egg and cracker. And it's pretty easy to make a big mess too, so. That's what they say about meals. Like, if you have a heck of a mess in your kitchen, you probably ate a really good meal. Throw a couple on here. I usually like to make a lot of different things. I'll make my elderberry syrup while I'm making my other products. I actually sold out the elderberry syrup because I had a lady who bought a big order of it. Just started offering that this year.
Do you grow your elderberries?
I buy them from a guy in Quincy.
Okay.
And mine actually, it's a 5 elderberry mix. I use cinnamon, cloves, honey, and ginger.
So is this your full-time gig there?
No, I work for a roofing company. If you didn't see the big yellow truck out there, that's me. I'm the production manager for a roofing company, but actually for 15 years, I owned my own construction company. I kind of got burned out. And then when I got really burned out when I found this hobby, and I just realized that I wasn't happy with what I was doing. So I got out of construction, and well, basically this job became available, and I really like working for this company. And I'm the production manager, so I basically make sure that all our roofs are installed correctly, communicate with the customer, and I don't have to do the physical work anymore. We have guys that do that. Yeah. All that hard work must have paid off for something. I still do like eventually I think to hire somebody to do this aspect if I ever do get big enough for. But mostly what I do is a really good part-time job. In the summer, it's more of a full-time. If you go to All Farmers Market, you can make pretty good money. I usually sell out of everything, and so I've been upgrading and to become more efficient at what I do. That's the thing about mushroom cultivation is the more you grow, the bigger equipment you can buy that actually cuts off so much time. But you have to spend a lot of money to make money in that instance.
Kind of like farming.
Yeah, of course, the combine's $250,000. Yeah. And a lot of our times in mushroom cultivation, it's like autoclave systems cost a lot of money. They actually sell some that can hold like 200 bags. You can sterilize like 200 bags at once. Those are usually like 10 to 15 grand. And they're really big machines, so you have to have a facility for it. But.
Yeah, that's the thing with seasoning, because like, yeah, you want to like this, but you want to put a lot of different. With other things on it.
Once you taste them and then finish.
No, but you want to put it on.
Yeah, I just haven't been really.
It's also really interesting if you ever have people over and you're feeding them a pink food because pink color food is very rare. You might get in some fruits, but when it starts to actually cook, you can see it actually starts to lighten up a little. So it's more like an orange now. Let me make sure I didn't miss. This is the pan fried again. Very easy to do. 3 to 5 minutes. You can literally have a cooked meal, a cooked side in 10 minutes, and literally without not much labor. You put it in there, and you can have a really healthy meal. Alternative with your family instead of eating something unhealthy. Again, these are all you can use fresh garlic. I love using fresh garlic if I can. I use fresh garlic in my soup. That is all garlic that I make when I make the soup. So that's really what I like to do. Other than that, it's really a matter of choice. As long as you have either butter or some kind of agent to keep it moist and not burn it, that's really what's important. And what you add after that's preference. But again, salt. Always salt afterwards because the salt will take away the moisture.
I've never done this, but can you steam a mushroom? Or
Yeah.
if you want to?
Yeah, that would be the rice cooker method, I think.
Oh,
If I remember, that's how I don't really cook much with the rice cooker, but yeah, there it is, 2 cups of water. And I've actually cooked them, but you can't really get them crispy that way, but it's a really good way to make, like if you like them really moist and more soggy.
I was thinking more like a Japanese or a Chinese meal.
Yeah.
Where, you want them
to be more soggy.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, really the preference of your crispiness is your method of cooking. So you're obviously, if you boil them or rice cook them, you're never going to be able to get them really crispy. But I noticed the difference in taste between when you actually cook them crispy and soggy. The soggy seems to get a lot of the more umami taste when you cook it that way. And they actually use sesame seed oil, but one of your more expensive oils, but there's the oven roasted. I think that one was at, what temperature? They used 400 degrees, 12 minutes. It's not much time. Using tongs, flip over and continue roasting the desired doneness about 10 minutes more. So, or about 20 minutes in your oven after you flip them at 400 degrees. And then whatever you like, add. Obviously, you want the. And then we have the boil again. Boil it 5 minutes. Really, all it takes. And boiling is really quick method of cooking. Doesn't really take much. Again, you can't really get that crispiness as a pan or air fryer. And there's that video I showed last time of the mushrooms actually growing. So this is actually 4.5 days turned into 14 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And that's the blue oyster species. And it kind of overgrew. You really want to pick them right before they actually drop their spores. So, but yeah, that's. And you can also see it has the ability to push things out of the way, push the tag. I've seen it break holes through the bag too. It has quite a force behind it. And it also drops. There was actually, this whole thing was full of white dust. It dropped all of its spores everywhere. But that's.
And then do you use that for? To read.
No, I don't need this.
Okay.
I already have my other stuff. Usually, you want to pick the mushroom like five hours before the spores drop. That's actually what it weighs the most for like a commercial grower where you get the most money. Now, as days go by, they actually lose weight. So you'll any gourmet mushroom farmer like me will actually lose a little bit of money as they start to dry out the plant. And that was the tent 2 where they grow. That's the environment that I grow these in. Is in a controlled humidity environment. So you can see that it's actually 58 to 70 degrees at 80 to 92% humidity. So yeah, it's actually cool and balmy.
Yeah.
And I have a fresh air vent too that actually exhausts the air for 20 minutes every 30 minutes. So there's also fresh air. So that machine actually runs a lot, but this machine, the fogging machine that actually humidifies the whole room. But it's very efficient. That's why I use this. This is actually an ultrasonic mist spot that actually vibrates and uses electricity. And I'm not really sure how it does it, but it actually creates a fog. And my 5x10 tent will actually completely fill up with fog where I can't even see a foot, like 6 inches. That's why mushrooms really like to grow. They like a fog, a complete fog that falls on them, and then air that evaporates the moisture. That's what they really like. You'll see that like in the morning in the forest, that morning fog, and then maybe an afternoon breeze sweeps through, and that's really what the mushrooms like. But we can try some of these if you guys would like. They have plates, and if you guys are still full from lunch. But these are the pink, and then shiitakes, and then the tarragon mushrooms. I have some silverware too. Classes. Yeah, they like steak. Those are tarragon, and pink, and then shiitake.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I didn't put much spices on it because I really wanted to more or less taste the natural flavor of it. You can obviously add whatever you like to.
Yeah.
The son-in-law, he started growing, it was legal there, he started growing marijuana. They didn't tell us that. We had to.
The pink oysters, you can taste the fishy taste.
Yes.
So, yeah, the mustache one. So that's shiitake.
So you get people who didn't.
That's a pink one?
Yes.
We ought to cut those in two so we can share it.
Girl.
Oh, I knew better get it changed.
No, you were talking about mushrooms, you get your, because of ready, and egg tasting similar.
Yeah.
You can do the same thing with oil and dandelion plumes.
Really?
No.
I always prefer the olive oil because butter can kind of, you get a butter taste in the mushroom, kind of hide the umami
Yeah,
taste.
that's why they taste so similar.
Yeah, and I really prefer the olive oil just for the healthier, obviously olive oil is.
Well, he took us out, and then we went into your shop, we hadn't seen the house because I just moved there. Oh, that's just right.
Yeah.
He always did keep his stuff in a, like he didn't never put it in a drawer.
Yeah.
Tanks, I know, but he kept it in. Oh, that's right.
I will, sometimes.
She said, that's just his closet. You go in there, I looked in there, it was dark. Your house smelled so funny.
Yeah.
He's got plants there. She says he doesn't have any place to finish them out, and so he puts them in the. Six plants. He said, yeah, those will be ready to bag. So he took them out while we were there. He grows them because he uses it calm. He's kind of ADHD and it calms him. He used to drink and he can't touch alcohol anymore, so he found that.
Yeah.
It was funny because.
When I cut that last one. That's the big one.
ready.
Oh, that's
Orange one. What's that?
What's this? I saw in the brochure, you said some mushrooms.
Yeah.
And that's, it's already
That's, yeah,
go.
yeah, that's what, you can see this one's actually growing lines, right? You can see the big one there. But yeah, it'll actually, this one's ready to go to take the air out, hold it and block the air out here, and then I kind of hold it. The mushroom will go right out of the hole. Just like that over there. Well, the lion's mane can actually grow from the top too, but that's.
Okay. Here's that brochure. Oh, good, thank you.
Yeah.
You just ordered the kit that you do all that sterilizing.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of times they grow better. You can also, they come with directions too, and they actually, you can spray them with water at home if you live in a dry environment.
Yeah.
Most modern homes that have a moderate HVAC system.
I wish.
Distribute, but things work well. They actually grow a lot. I've noticed in new homes. Literally set in your kitchen. Just grow on your kitchen. Everything, all it needs is in there.
These were the, he's gone.
Easier way to make it.
Doing all that, yeah. But it's good to understand that you the tarragon oyster. Actually, the first time I tried them too.
I never heard of like
There's a young lady that's here today, her grandfather knew all the mushrooms that were edible in this area. It's too bad we all didn't pay more attention to them. Is he gonna take us out? Thank you, it's very interesting.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming.
Are you selling any of the supplements thing
Yeah.
today? You know how I think like the turkey tail, the one that says frozen or something.
Yeah.
I like soft.
Yeah, that's
You
fine.
have more that we.
A whole bunch. I was planning on doing the vendor market, but
Yeah.
the last 2 days I've had to work a lot.
One turkey is no greens.
Okay.
Now, do you think? Well, yeah.
Either one, and I have Cash App, Venmo, those things, PayPal for online payments. But
Thank you, I really
yeah,
enjoyed this.
I brought all of them.
Yes, you did. Thank you, I really enjoyed
Yeah.
your program, thank you.
Thank you for joining me. And you wanted the lion's mane.
Not gonna get it.
So I do sell them in two sizes too. So I sell them in 160 capsules for 13 and then 120 for they're 25 of each one.
Yeah.
So if you want the 60 capsule, this is a month supply, and your 120 is more of 2 months. Or if you're sharing with somebody else, 1 month. This is a whole month here.
Mhm.
So you just want a month?
Yeah, just be trust try one,
Okay.
usually small ones, and then like an order online, then right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do pretty fast shipping. I usually try to
Oh,
ship
you
out the
took them
next
5 or?
What's that?
Yeah, or you took 5.
13 each.
Sorry.
The cream of mushroom soup is 5.
Oh. What did you say is the lion's mane?
Oh, I'll just give you that. Take that type with you. But they're really,
Okay, I got one.
yeah, really, there's a lot of different things. That's why I put it in a pamphlet. 'Cause-
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
And you wanted
Is
that,
that, are they 13 apiece?
13, yeah.
Okay.
Did I give you the turkey tail and lion's mane yet? 26.
Give me the- Yeah. Okay, there's 26.
Thank
Sorry,
you.
I just
No,
looked.
you're fine.
I didn't get there. Thank you.
And I guess you're welcome to look around. I try to offer the most affordable medicine. That stuff is, we offer the cheapest price anywhere on
Oh, I'm
Amazon.
not worried about that.
So I like
That's
it.
great.
And the stuff is good. Well, you can go on the website and check out the other reviews from other people who bought it
Do
as well.
you, do shipping and everything?
Yeah, that's the majority of my herbal medicine. I've actually shipped to over 20 states now, so
Okay, yeah, I just look up.
with no issues. Yeah, not an issue to ship supplements.
Okay, great, thank you.
Where do you buy their mushrooms other than the farmer's market?
I get when I buy them in a liquid mycelium, I get them from Liquid Fungi, funk.com. That's usually where I buy all the species. They actually have like
I mean, if
40.
you buy just the mushrooms and not grow them, is
Oh,
that only where you get them at the farmer's market? You grow the actual mushrooms?
Yeah. yeah. I do at home pickup too. Sometimes I have them and stuff. People message me on my Facebook or my website.
Like if I was going to Quincy and I wanted to stop by and pick some up or something like that, you know, or-
Could, but I usually try to prepare for Saturdays only to sell mushrooms because it's kind of a process to pick them and then prepare them and
Yeah.
actually sell.
Will you take a check?
Yeah,
Okay. One of each,
of these, yeah, and that would just be 26.
and then, how do you make, do you just go ahead and make your cream sauce for your mushroom soup?
That can be eaten just like that, or you can add it to any recipe that calls for it. I've even people said they put it on pizza. They made omelets with it.
Okay.
It really tastes. It's really hearty if you eat it by itself. It's really nutritional.
And that,
And what's that? And one of those.
and a
Okay.
mushroom, yeah.
And that's the shiitake one too.
Yeah. Mushrooms smell good.
That would just be 31.
Is it mushroom in or what?
Regular mushroom. It's fine actually.
Okay.
It's in my name.
They can't maybe sun-drying. Now, I want to try this thing. The reason I'm interested in both too is my kids have been talking to me about lion's mane. I've got great voice, and two of them have been, researching and doing stuff. But the one that's out in Washington has metastatic melanoma. It's gone to his brain a couple of times. And he's doing really well, but as you look into this stuff, it's like,
Yeah, it's intriguing, especially when you start taking them.
Well,
I just educate people on the lines, man, and the nature does the rest.
Yeah.
Because once you take it, you're like, wow, this stuff has effects on your body that you can feel.
Yeah, and that's what I like to know, that because he's been taking some supplements with the lion's mane, and I think turkey tail kilo, and he's telling me how much better he feels. So
Yeah.
I kind of want
Yeah, my
to
gut.
be able to relate to him over the phone.
Yeah. Tell my gut. I actually just introduced it a month ago. I can tell my gut is healthier because I actually have taking Western medicine prescriptions most of my life. Kind of tore up my gut.
Oh, this is awful.
And I like it mostly antidepressants.
Well, I had, about 5 or 6 years ago to really, well, it's a gut issue they couldn't figure out. They said, well, there's nothing you can do about it, just live with it or take corticosteroids or something. And I'm like, no.
No, the body is capable of healing. It's just a matter of just finding the
It's
knowledge
with
to
a really,
do it.
really super clean diet, gluten-free.
Yeah.
I bet you got to work at it.
It's hard to find gluten-free, sugar-free, you know, all
Yeah.
the things that are bad for us are too prevalent at the grocery store. And it's even more if you go to like your low-income grocery stores. Like there's barely anything healthy in those stores because they can't afford it. You pay twice as much for anything that's healthy.
Would you say the great mushroom?
Dan Baird.
Okay.
I don't have a bank
Make it
account,
simple,
so
okay.
it's a greater mushroom. So they would, just for the fact they have all these cash apps now, you don't need a bank account.
Well, I'll spend more today than I intended.
Well, you got something that'll help your body
Well, yeah.
and like I said, you're welcome to get on the website actually, and you can contact me, ask any questions that if you actually mess with the website, it goes immediately to my phone.
Okay. That sounds good.
What's going on, guys? So we were actually live too on a podcast, but we were live on a podcast. Still got 4 people watching. Thanks, you guys. Time to clean up.
Yeah, we're leaving you with the dishes. What's that?
I'm pretty fast. And there's the garden.
Yeah, we put stuff in the car for finishing.
Oh, very good.
Still got 3 people. But thank you guys for joining me. I was probably going to end it now. Let's start cleaning up and head back to Quincy, but I appreciate you guys joining me. Don't forget to do that like, share, reaction button. Hopefully you guys could hear me because that was a lot of good information that we shared today. I'm happy with the way it turned out. And I'm happy I was able to present the information because I've had a very little sleep this week. And that's what I'm going to go home and do. So thank you guys for joining me. You guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys later.